And this is from Clinton.
From what?
Clinton.
Hillary or Bill?
I don't know.
I thought you said Clinton.
Clinton.
As a location. All right, from
Says,
Clinton.
Hey, non-prophets.
Hey.
Part of the conversation on the last podcast reminded me of David Wood, a Christian apologist who claims that religion and fear of hell are the only thing that prevents him from doing harm to others. He has a YouTube channel where he gives the entire story of his conversion from an atheist with no morals to a God-fearing Christian. As a
with
teenager,
no morals.
Yeah, with no morals. Exactly. As a teenager, he nearly murdered his father by hitting him in the head with a hammer. He had no empathy, no compassion, and he attributes this to being an atheist. Then, of course, he found religion, bought into the threat of eternal damnation, and now he follows the moral code found in the Bible.
So he's a psychopath like Dexter who has a code now from a religion.
Right.
Okay.
He still doesn't care for his fellow man. He doesn't have a sense of right and wrong other than what he gets from the Bible. I think we all give Christians the benefit of the doubt, even when they claim that without their God, they would have no morals. We all know they reject the worst parts of the Bible because they are actually more moral than their God. They are generally good people in spite of their religion, not because of it. But then we have guys like David Wood, a guy who legitimately would see nothing wrong with killing another human being for no reason, if not for the threat of eternal damnation. Of course, this is the basis of his apologist rhetoric. As an atheist, he would be a murderer. Therefore, nobody else could have morals without God. He's absolutely the exception and not the rule, but how many of those exceptions are out there?
So last I saw, because I was starting to do some work on why psychopathy exists in a world with God, which I don't know when I'll get that done, but it's been estimated that a significant chunk of the population is like a psychopath.
He was looking at me funny because I made a drinking noise into my...
No, because every time you raise your microphone, it cuts my sound out.
Oh.
Yeah, you're on. Yeah, okay.
Oh.
You were saying.
I bet.
Anyway, so the odds are good that you actually know somebody who's a psychopath. And by the way, they're not all dangerous killers.
There's a spectrum, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of criteria, and there's a test that you can give. And if you score like the max you can get is 40 points, but if you're like 30 and over, you're in the realm of being a psychopath. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be any expert on this. It's just something I was looking into because like half the stuff on Netflix is about serial killers. But
I feel like Netflix is trying to profile you, Matt.
That might be. It's also because I shared the account with Beth, and Beth watches a lot of serial killer stuff. But reading through this, I don't know how that's functionally different from Dexter, hey, I've got a code.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if religion is in fact the only thing that's keeping this guy from killing people, then I want him to remain religious.
Keep being religious, dude.
Sure, but you could,
if religion is
find any arbitrary code. He just happened to latch on to, that brand of Christianity.
Yeah, but he should not claim to be being moral, because what he's doing is being obedient.
Yeah,
and obedience is not morality.
So it depends on whether or not you define a moral person as needing to understand morality or whether it's just the result of their actions.
Well, my thing is, if he's using the Bible, what happens when he runs across a witch?
What I was going to say is if religion is the only thing keeping him moral, I'd like to know how much he actually uses the Bible for that versus a particular interpretation, and also anything that's better than traditional religions would be good. Can he become a religious humanist with this sort of ridiculous...
He'd become a secular humanist.
Secular humanist,
That would be better.
Well, he's if you avoid doing bad things out of fear of punishment, you're basically a planaria. You're just responding to conditioning.
What is a planaria?
Well, it's a flatworm that they like to use for experiments. They'll train it to go through a simple maze, and they'll give it an electric shock if it goes the wrong way, or
and it
give it a
remembers the
reward if it
electric
goes
shocks?
the other way.
Okay.
And so you can train it.
You could view it as the tic-tac-toe chicken.
Right.
You know, that
Is that an actual thing?
oh my gosh.
All right. Well, I've got some
if you're
YouTube
just
videos to watch.
mindlessly carrying out the carrot and stick scenario, there's no morality involved. You're just trying to avoid pain.
So Jamie's unfamiliar with carny stuff, evidently. So I've failed as a parent.
Well, but I am too, but I just didn't say it out loud.
Among the various things, there would be a chicken that you could play a game of tic-tac-toe against. And what would happen is there's a board inside the chicken coop where he would peck on certain, you know, wherever he wanted his piece to go. Except that the chicken's not doing any thinking. What's happening is there's a light that lights up and the chicken is going to peck that one. And that gives him a food reward. And then if he doesn't, then they shock the bottom of the cage.
Right.
So they teach a chicken to play tic-tac-toe because tic-tac-toe is a simple enough game that it's been solved, so they can teach a chicken to play it.
Yeah.
No, they're not teaching a chicken to play tic-tac-toe. There's no evidence that the tic-tac-toe, that the chicken understands he's playing a game or doing anything. He's just mechanically responding to reward and punishment.
So my question is, during the game of tic-tac-toe,
Yes.
Are they lighting lights? And
are they actually lighting the lights, or does he remember where to peck based previously?
A light lights up to tell him exactly where to peck.
So there's a 3x3 spare. If the chicken carny tic-tac-toe trainer wants him to move in the middle, a light lights up in the middle?
Yes.
Okay. That's less sophisticated than I
That's what I'm saying. The chicken does not know how to play tic-tac-toe.
I don't believe for a moment that you could like intellectually teach a chicken this, but if you there's probably also an unintelligent animal that you could train such that if you showed it, because the game tic-tac-toe is so simple, if a person moves here, I want you to move here, and then if this is the situation, you put one here.
Yes. I think there are plenty of animals that could learn to play something as simple as tic-tac-toe. I just, wanted to put chickens in the same category as planaria.
Chickens are pretty chicken. Wait, did we get through that?
So anyway, that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were just, describing, why Christians are willing to paint themselves as monsters.
Because they've been told they're monsters.
Because they've been told they're monsters.
Because they've been told that all humans are monsters.
Yeah. But they're not. No. So,
and
I don't know. So Dennis's question was why Christians are willing to paint themselves as monsters, and I can tell you that at no point during the time that I was a Christian did I view myself as a monster. I had, in many ways, confused obedience for morality.
Yeah. Well, when asked, would you rather be out raping and killing if not for the strictures of your religion, you would answer. Have answered.
I would have answered no.
No, good. Because I had one guy say yes.
Yeah.
And that's because he didn't want to surrender any part of his argument. And so he was willing to paint himself as a monster just to win an argument.
But he doesn't view that as a monster. That's the thing. Because you're viewing monster as in there are good people and then there are people who are monstrous. And he's viewing it as we are all sinners. Yeah. None of us are deserving. And so he doesn't view himself as any more monstrous than anybody else.
Yeah.
Dennis and I never really grew up religious, so I think we might share a little bit of a handicap in relating to that mindset.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a little...
It's surreal.
Timey-windy, twisty-bendy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I will say is, Dennis, him falling back and like denying everything just so that he doesn't cede any part of his argument sounds more like just humans arguing than specifically religion.
Well, yeah, but he had to go there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say it again, I think it's completely arbitrary that he happened to latch on to Christianity. If he lived in a different part of the world, he would have latched on to, Hinduism, and that Hinduism is the reason that he's not a, rapist, torturing murderer.
Right.
I don't see...
It'd be interesting.
I don't really see what the point of...
I don't think I'm familiar with this guy. And so it'd be interesting to see exactly what his style of preaching and evangelizing is and how he portrays himself, because there's the simplistic thing, which even Jordan Peterson did this when we were sitting down up in Toronto, which is giving the impression that without God all things are permissible, and an atheist would just rationalize killing whoever they wanted to kill. So it's not limited to merely fundamentalist Christians.
Yeah.
There's a confused mindset about
It's
how
all
morals
sorts
work.
of fuzzy.
So God
feathers.
more of as an abstract as opposed to a particular denomination or religion.
Yeah. It's the concern, the seemingly unending concern that without the code, irrespective of where it comes from, because I think Jordan would say that no matter where you get your code, that's your God. But without that, the world will just descend into chaos. And we have, I don't know how many millions of secular humanists who are proving that wrong on a daily basis.
Yeah, which is weird. It seems like they all have to be presuppositionalists, you know, and think, oh, we all secretly believe in God and follow his rules. Because when faced with atheists not being murderous monsters, you know.
Yeah, no, the apologetic is the only reason that Matt is moral is because he lives in a culture that is surrounded by the morality of Christianity.
Oh, God.
And Matt, there are some who would view me as the rough equivalent of a Dexter following a code.
Good grief.
Because that's the way they think about those things. We're all fallen creatures. We're all sinners. And I've had people like you, when you were talking about that person who said, oh, yeah, if it weren't for religion, I did. There are people who've called the atheist experience and said that as well.
Yeah.
I don't believe them, much like
Right,
you.
I don't either. I'm going to give them the
willing to
benefit
concede
of the
the point.
doubt there, but damn.
Yeah.
That reminds me, I want to throw this out really quick because last episode I did make a mistake. I basically said that same thing. I said that Christians, like deep down, they know that they're full of shit. And someone in the comment section on YouTube was like, no, dude, that's the same as them saying that we really believe in God. And I got caught up in the moment, and it's all off the cuff. So
there's a really good talk out there.
yeah, I want to say thank you to that guy that left that comment. Appreciate it.
I'm still willing to go there. I don't care.
If you dig around, you'll find Beth once did a talk called Yes, We Really Believed That, where she specifically talked to lifelong atheists who are very confused about what it's like to be in that mindset. And so when we start saying things like, oh, well, they know they're full of shit or whatever, that's not the case. I sincerely believe, did not think for a minute that I was full of shit until I found out I was.
Yeah, I meant to walk that back later on, but we got kind of caught up and off track, and I wasn't able to do it.
But you never really believed there was a talking donkey, did you? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And a talking snake. And all those other things. Now, to what extent I believed them,
And a
I
talking
couldn't say.
toaster. He went to Mars. Wait, Dennis, are you saying that Christians don't really believe deep down?
Well, I've got a stupid emotional argument based on it, yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I really don't know.
Consider. You wouldn't walk up to a policeman and commit a crime right in front of them while sneering in their face, would you? But every time a Christian sins, they're sinning right in God's face and sneering while they're doing it.
Nah, but that's not quite true.
So they believe the policeman exists, but they don't believe the God does.
And I completely disagree.
Okay,
Having
that's
been
fine.
in that situation, it wasn't that I thought I could fool God. It was that I already knew I was a sinner. I could not overcome my base desires. The foundational thing within Christianity, especially in modern fundamentalism, is that none of us are or ever could live up to the full extent of the law. That's why Catholics have when they go into and do confessions and stuff. So.
But you can resist your desire to commit a crime right in front of a policeman.
You can't, because it's your nature to do that.
Oh, boy.
So the crimes that I would commit in front of God, because God was everywhere, would be lust. I don't have any control over that. That's just who I am, and it's my job as a Christian to fight and work against that, but I am going to fail, and that is why God is so awesome, because he knows that I'm going to fail, and he will forgive me anyway. It's the forgiveness thing that is the you know.
Well, he
long as
won't unless you do all that other stuff.
As long as you love him properly.
Yeah.
That's the real problem is if you're convinced that you're saved, and if you buy into this once saved, always saved, then you don't have to go to church, and you don't have to care if you're sinning against God because you're already saved.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can do any atrocity.
So it's
you
not
can
that I didn't
become
believe God existed. It's that I believed that God was going to forgive me in much the same way that it's not that if I went up and committed a crime in front of a police officer, it wasn't because I didn't believe the policeman existed, it was because I was convinced the policeman wouldn't arrest me, that he would just forgive me. That's the mindset. That takes place.
So if you don't fall under the once saved, always saved mindset, or
you're really missing out. It's the best one.
Don't you kind of have to live with the paranoia of, yes, I'm being a good Christian, but what if I'm not being good enough?
Yeah,
you can't be good enough. That's the point.
Right. That's the whole thing.
That's the thing. It's you're going to fail, and God knows you're going to fail, but God's going to forgive you anyway. The thing is, you need to actually be repentant. You need I mentioned the once saved, always saved. That's not even a full requirement for this mindset. It's just a matter of convenience of, oh, my mansion in heaven is not going to be as nice as somebody else's because my walk with Christ was not as good as somebody else's. It's not ever about, oh, I could actually be so bad that even after I'm saved, God would abandon me and send me to hell. I'm going to heaven no matter how much sinful stuff I do. It's just that I want to strive to do better so that God rewards me better, and that, when I'm standing face to face, I don't have this, my gosh, you lived a terrible life, you were wholly undeserving. And instead, I can be like other people, and it's, yeah, you lived a bad life and you were wholly undeserving, but you weren't as bad as some other people.
So, as I said, I didn't grow up religious, so most of what I get from the religious mindset is like watching Christian movies.
Yeah.
And basically every single Christian apocalypse movie, there's always a priest or a preacher or whatever that didn't get raptured, and they always say, oh, I preached it every Sunday, but I never truly believed it, or I just wasn't I wasn't a good enough Christian, even though I was a pastor.
Well,
it kind of smacks of that idea that you can never be good enough, and that's why you're broken. And
well, you were born broken because you were born into a sinful world. The one notion, I guess, to talk about is it depends on what your particular doctrine's soteriology is.
Mm-hmm.
And the bulk of the world who aren't Christians have this view of Christianity that it has something to do with being good. As if, you do a bunch of good things, you go to heaven, you do a bunch of bad things, you go to hell. That is absolutely the antithesis of what almost every version of Christianity in the modern world teaches. Yes, you can do good things. You can never do enough good things. You can do bad things. But whether or not you are saved, whether or not you spend eternity with God, has nothing to do with whether or not you did good things or bad things or some balance scale, because you could never earn your way to heaven. It's up to God and His grace to grant you that. And when you're in that mindset, or when I was, I'm not going to speak for every believer or former believer, but when you're in that mindset, it's like an excuse. Hey, I'm never going to be good enough, and my preacher's never going to be good enough. And so if I do something, I know that God's going to, probably forgive me anyway, or I know that I'm saved. So this is why you have this cycle of rededication and guilt that a lot of religions do. Of, well, you're not living up to what Jesus wants from you. You need to do better. And then you fall to your knees and you cry and you pray and you're like, yes, I should do so much better. It's just so difficult because she's hot and I can't help but lust after her. Or,
So basically, Emo Phillips had it right.
Yes.
It's a constant guilt trip.
Yeah. Yes. And the thing is, I think if you talk to most Christian pastors, they'd recognize this, and it's because the guilt is deserved, because you were born into sin and you have a fundamentally sinful nature. You are constantly in opposition with God, and it is only God's love and grace that lets you break free from that, nothing that you do yourself.
Yeah. So Google Emo Phillips bicycle.